I know you know about servant leadership if you listen to this podcast, but I want you to think about this concept. A servant leader becomes a servant creative. Never heard that concept before, servant creative. But that would be the headline for this episode. A servant leader becomes a servant creative. This is the story of a first-generation American who went from corporate America to her own entrepreneurial endeavor. She now asks for her clients, how do you change people's minds? It's a great question. And there's one other important question she asks as well, and we're going to learn the answers today and a lot more. So let's dive into it. Welcome, everyone, to cbuzz, the award-winning podcast presented by the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, proudly recognized as Columbus's very first business-focused podcast. We're thrilled to bring you this show in partnership with Capital University. My name's Michaela Hunt, your host and brand journalist for cbuzz, where we dive into the compelling stories of the leaders who are really shaping Central Ohio's vibrant business community. Now, today, we're broadcasting from the Convergent Media Center at Capital University, which is really a dynamic space where students and faculty collaborate on music, film, creative writing, and digital media projects. We are so excited to share these incredible stories with you from this truly innovative hub. We're going to welcome a guest today by the name of Jennifer Walton. She's Chief Brand Officer of Nile Consulting. Jennifer is a brand builder, creative strategist, and unapologetic voice for impact. As the Chief Brand Officer of Nile Consulting and the co-founder of GRND, she builds brands that move people and shape culture, from grassroots initiatives to government agencies. But beyond the title, she's also a community builder, a champion for women and working mothers, a corporate marketing exec in her former life who traded in the boardroom to help reshape the future through storytelling, strategy, and cultural intelligence. Whether she's advising C-suite leaders, building statewide campaigns, or raising her daughters with intention and joy, Jennifer is always asking one question: how do we build something better for all of us? Jennifer, welcome to cbuzz.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
That question in the intro is just so substantial. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, and I can't wait to dive into some of the answers with you.
Excellent.
To that question. So thank you for being here. So for those of you who haven't had the chance to connect with Nile Consulting yet, Jennifer, how would you describe what exactly your organization does and the impact you're making?
Sure. At the most basic level, we are a strategy, marketing, and branding firm. And what I like to say is that we really do that through the lens of storytelling, narrative design, thinking about how do we change people's minds. And when you think about the world that we're in today, there are folks who are doing that really well, and then there are folks who are really struggling. And so my thought is, how do I better understand how narratives drive change? How can I be the translator in between? And what does that mean for someone like me who has a corporate background and who's kind of broke out and done her own thing and building that thing, building something that I myself haven't quite seen? And it's a weird space. It's, marketing and branding. Everyone kind of thinks that they understand that. And
everybody's
love that.
An expert.
Everyone has a Facebook page.
And everybody does.
I love that because it just presents a challenge and it gives me the opportunity to be a strategist, to help you connect the dots, to help you understand the people that you're trying to reach, because it's highly likely that you don't quite know them as well as you should. So we really like to build outside-in perspectives, be that translator for brands that are trying to connect with audiences, whether that's constituents, communities, or you're selling something in the marketplace. We get really excited about that, but we really get excited about breaking it all down.
You did cut your teeth in a career in corporate marketing and went from that to chief brand officer for your own company. So I want to get to that first because I want to know what sparked that change and what you hope to build differently through Nile Consulting.
So let me give you the sanitized version. Surely, right? It's 2020. I have my first great resignation. I'm leaving corporate to go to the public sector. And that feels so cool. I remember publishing it on LinkedIn and I'm doing a thing and everybody's doing a thing, but here's my thing. And then I was in the public sector for a year and I realized that this is different. the public sector is way different than the private sector. And it was a bit of a, let's call it a culture shock for me. And so I don't think that that was a good fit for me and for the rigor that I had and the training that I had. And so I decided to make another pivot, another great resignation. And I'll be honest with you, I looked at different opportunities. I was interviewing back with Fortune 100 companies. I even thought about crawling back to my former company. No shame in my game.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, my husband / the therapist I don't pay was like, you're doing all this work. And he goes, I think the answer is you. And I was like, yeah, but I don't have a salary that comes every 2 weeks.
Truth.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't have benefits somewhere within me. And he was like, you will figure it out. And I'm going to tell you the hard truth. I had 2 weeks to figure it out.
2 weeks.
2 weeks to figure it out. Because when I made the decision to leave my former job, it was just like that. I thank you for this time. Thank you for the lessons I've learned. But I will now go and pursue other opportunities. You know, you get that email like, they are going to pursue other opportunities. That other opportunity was me. And I had 2 weeks to figure it out. I had one contract. I took a picture on my iPhone and I sent it out to my friends. And I was like, hey, everyone, I am starting a business. You don't have to buy what I'm cooking, but when I ask you to share it, please do. And I sent that email out to like 125 people, coworkers, friends, people I had been in community with over the years that knew my work product. And I posted it on LinkedIn and I have not looked back since.
In studying a little bit about you, you are a very purpose-driven person. And so my guess is your leap into the public sector for a moment had to do with purpose. And I think there's a lot there.
I love that you said that, yes.
But the movement is different. And when you've been in corporate, so now that you're able to do your own thing and continue to live in that purpose, what did you hope to build differently than what you experienced, I'll say, in the corporate world?
You know what? I remember when I first became a leader and, you know, companies will have leadership development trainings and things like that. That's all textbook stuff. And as someone who has an MBA and who's gone through the trainings, like textbook stuff, that's theory. The reality of it is that you don't always know what it's going to look like, right? And so sometimes you make decisions in your life based on what you've experienced and also based on what you've not. So what is the thing that has been lacking throughout my career? And so that's how I approached leadership. I will be the type of leader that I would have needed for myself. And I know I'm not alone. When I went to go build my agency, I'll tell you, it is super easy to look at other people and go, how did they do it? How did they do it? How did they do it? I fall victim to that myself. But I come back to what would I have needed? And when I was in corporate, I was always what we call in the industry client side. So I'm working with the agencies. I used to get my hands slapped because I was too nice to the agencies. And I was like, well, I can't change who I am. They worked hard. What they produced is excellent. It may not be what we eventually need, but that doesn't change the truth of what they built with their creativity that we demanded of them at the drop of a hat, which is not how creativity works. Was still good and worth the praise. So then when I left that space of bullying the agencies and became the agency because I clearly have fallen and bumped my head, I wanted to build what I wish I could have led when I was client side.
Got it. And you do emphasize rest, compassion, and collaboration as part of your creative process now in the work that you're doing. And those are values that aren't always prioritized in our daily lives.
And they're also not what clients care about. Let's be honest, right? Everyone wants, there's the triangle of like fast, good, and cheap, choose two, right? I try to set those expectations up front. And that's why I'm so vocal with my values and what this agency is about. Because if you want good creativity, you don't want me not having any sleep.
Absolutely not.
Who can do that, right? If you want a sound strategy and you're sitting there burnt out, you don't want me to be burnt out. And so by and large, it informs how we approach business development, what kinds of clients that we are looking for. We are looking for clients that understand that we can, in our discovery sessions, we will often tell, particularly the nonprofits that we work with, we're not immune to the societal ills that you are also trying to solve. So if we're working on an anti-poverty campaign, also understand that I am a small business. And so if by any chance I am unable to get a contract or do some of this work, I could be the beneficiary of your campaign. Any of us could be. And I think when we say that up front, it resets expectations for the client to think like, these are real people I'm working with. That's right.
We are.
Sometimes you just have to remind people of your humanity because we spend a lot of time behind screens.
We do.
And so it's easy to have keyboard courage and bang out an email that's like, I need this deliverable yesterday. Well, yesterday has passed. We're in today. And unless we are working on a literal curing cancer campaign, we're not curing cancer. So it's okay that it's going to take us an extra day to deliver that excellent creative. I'll just communicate that.
Right. And so many times we are not curing cancer in that marketing world. But how do you see branding as a force for social change?
Yeah.
Because I do know you have that lens.
Absolutely. Because branding is really about belief. I have got to convince you of this thing that I need you to take action on. We have this system that we're working on. It's the Sky Now Story Shift system. And within that, it's recognizing that I need people to see, to feel, to do. Then I need them to even carry water for us. I need them to amplify the message. I need them to get a little uncomfortable at times when it comes to creating social change. When you think about, I think about this often, probably more than I should, but the truth.org campaigns of the 90s, right, changed a lot of people's minds, a lot of the young folks' minds about cigarette use, right? And they did it through storytelling. I think about a cookbook. You don't put on the front page of or the cover of a cookbook your worst recipe. The branding is the shiny thing that gets people's attention. It is, are you clear? Are you credible? Are you trustworthy? Can I believe you? Now, where do you sell it?
And that's where your how do we build something better for all of us comes in.
And you know what? When you have the opportunity to operate in your own vision and create from where you reside, like what is inside of you, you can start to ask those questions. And no, I don't always have the answers, but I love working on a public health campaign and in spending time with the client, realizing that people show up here at 7:00 in the morning to get their teeth pulled for free. People don't know that. And that's why public health is so important.
Storytelling and cultural intelligence central to what you do. So I'm curious, where did your passion for these disciplines begin?
I think that throughout my life, I've realized that I'm kind of in between. I am first generation American. I have a lot of things about me that reside in a gray area. And so what that has given me is to get the translation. I mentioned I used to get my hand slapped for being nice to the agency. It's because I understood them. And so I actually developed a knack of, instead of giving you all kind of some freedom to create from your own creativity, and then it goes up the leadership chain and it gets, red inked all over. If I can actually translate the strategy that the leadership wants to you, then you will measure 1,000 times and cut once. And what you give me now will go up the ladder and get the green light.
Green light, yeah.
And so I learned how to do that in corporate. I kind of really cut my teeth from a community engagement standpoint in the public sector. And so I'm able to kind of marry that corporate rigor and process with humanity of a mom and pop shop. And so it's not cultural intelligence always in just, do you speak a dialect? But it is having all these diverse experiences within my own life. I've lived in another country. I'm from the deep South. I have all these different experiences that kind of inform the ability to translate. It just so happens I work in the communications field. So that's kind of a good gift, right?
It is a great gift.
And it makes everyone, both the client, the community that we're serving, feel seen and heard.
You're a first generation American.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's funny because I will tell people this, I'll tell you this, and I guarantee you I'll see you 2 months from now, you'll say a different island. But my family is from Bermuda. And what always happens, I will undoubtedly see someone, they'll go, you're from the Bahamas, aren't you? I'm like, I'll take it. But my family is from Bermuda. And that's a whole different frame of reference that I grew up with. And oddly enough, even there, I grew up in Florida. Most people that are from an island are from islands within the Caribbean. My island is floating way out in the Atlantic Ocean by itself, right? In Hurricane Alley. And at the tip of the Bermuda Triangle, which is not real.
It's not real.
I've been all through it.
People have heard it here
it's not real.
I'm
sure someone else has debunked it, but
you're saying it.
I'm saying it. I would say that I learned a lot about the immigrant experience. I would say I learned a lot about growing up in the Deep South and being different. And then when I got around other island folks, when I was in college, I was from a different island. Everyone else was from the same island. Everyone else was in the Caribbean. I've always been close, but on the outside. And that is character building. But again, it gives you a cultural intelligence that when you then move to the Midwest, you're talking multiple tongues all the time.
All the time. You've helped brands do some really great work, and you were kind of alluding to this a minute ago. You've worked on grassroots initiatives to government agency work. What did those? So you're bringing yourself to this table as you are, this first generation American, which always is kind of the outsider. But this storytelling and cultural intelligence plays such a role in what you do. So when you bring it to a grassroots initiative or to a government agency, what have those experiences taught you?
Yep.
And really about, I guess, bridging creativity and impact to scale.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it's different for each of those groups.
You know, the first thing is never to assume. And again, I have all these diverse experiences, but that is not the totality of them all. But what it is curiosity. Outside in. Don't assume, one, that the things that you're talking about, whether that's policy or legislation, that is easily consumable to the folks that you're talking to. And most times, it's actually not. And so in that role, I'm able to act as the truth teller to the client. Like, I am a layperson, but I do have 2 degrees and I have all these things. I don't understand anything that this says. So as my job, I will translate that to these communities. I'm also going to be in deep research. I need to understand the things that I may miss. My immigration experience is completely different because even my home country, the mother tongue is English, right? So that's a different experience. And I understand that I still have to extend my curiosity to those who had a different experience from me. But I do know what it's like to move to a country where they don't speak English. And so I've had that experience as well. But I say all that to say it's curiosity. And when you come to a client and you give them that curiosity and you go through those questions and you are a truth teller and you are clear that you are trying to get to impact, then they trust you and they trust the things that you're going to build. And then when you go to the communities and you listen to them and you hear the diversity of things, but you find that common ground, that's how you scale it. There's all these things that you're talking about, but there's the thing that threads the needle. That's what we're going to latch onto. And then there are times where sometimes I have to have 5 different conversations to get that impact, but it's worth it.
You believe everyone has a creative talent that's living within them, from reading up a little bit on you. So unlocking that potential in your team or your clients, what does that look like? Because you're talking about the thread of the actual messaging, but how do you get people to the place where we can consider and develop this, and have those conversations from a creative standpoint?
I think it's getting over ourselves. I think when it comes to something like creativity, there is certainly a standard, right? And we oftentimes have to work within rigid brand standards of our clients, and we have to work within our client's voice. Those are things that I can train to. But I believe we call ourselves, you ever heard of like servant leadership? We call ourselves like servant creatives because we are in service, not to just our clients and our communities, but also to the process of creativity, right? So there are things that you have to study to know. But really when I'm talking to folks that are looking to work with me or collaborate with me, I'm just looking for the passion. If you're passionate about anything, we can make that creative. Just like anyone can dance, because if you were able to move a part of your body, then you are able to dance it, whether that's your eyelash, anything, right?
Right.
It's the same with art. There are many things that you look at and you say, is that art? It is art to the artist. And so we approach it the same way. Like if you're passionate about anything, then put it into this creativity. Let it out. My husband's a lawyer, but we have a business where he did all the interior design. As a matter of fact, I hate to admit this, he did a lot of the interior design for our home too, because it was a creative outlet for him.
For him.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he took a very almost black and white and gray legal area and turned it into something beautiful throughout our home. He would say he's not a creative. I would say you absolutely are.
Because it was inspired.
It was inspired, and it's colors, it's paint, right? And it's just how you put it all together.
So I love servant creatives, and that will stick with me from this conversation
Awesome.
as I move forward. But since you mentioned leadership, I want to talk a little bit about that angle of your world. So for those who want to lead with purpose, since you are a purpose-driven individual, how do they do that without losing themselves in the process in a world that can be such a grind?
And you know what? I will tell you that it starts with, I have this thing that's kind of like a authentic presence pyramid. And I got a chance to go to Egypt and see the pyramids once. And I thought, this is massive. I mean, pretty simple thought.
Right.
Pretty big. That was my first thought. But I studied the structure and I thought, like, at the base of this pyramid is the foundation. And that is the most important piece because nothing else could rest upon it. And that is like your core identity. And I always tell people when you're building what your authentic present looks like intentionally, be as clear as this. Like at the foundation of your pyramid, your core identity, everybody knows these things about you when they interact with you. Then it's like this relational piece. How do you see yourself as it plays into the role of community and how do you relate to others? And at the top of that is sacred. Like this is me and my absolute understanding of my own intelligence and brilliance. I am in touch with that. All leaders need to know that. What are your foundational, relational, and sacred elements to your identity and who you are, and live that in your personal brand. No one can disrupt you from that. I have been in many corporate environments as both an employee and as a consultant, and speaking up, standing in my values has never hurt me.
It's so funny because as we're having this conversation today, there was a headline that I saw about King Tut's tomb crumbling.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
I saw that earlier today. And I think about you with this analogy with pyramids. And yes, Tut's not, I guess, technically in a pyramid, but it's something.
He's in Luxor.
And so with his actual tomb, I think you sometimes have to fix it. And that's what they're talking about doing, that it's filled with all this stuff. Yeah. Over time, as a leader, you're gonna lose some drive. You're gonna lose some energy, but it's going in and working on it and fixing it.
When you're intentional about it and you have a framework to return to, that helps you. It takes the guesswork out of what do I do next, because it's not who am I. It's just who am I in this moment. When you know who you are, there are going to be moments that force you to question that you second guess yourself, but by and large, you know who you are. And so as leaders, lead with those values. And like I said, I've never once been hurt when I did that. And if I had been, then that wasn't the fit for me. So what?
And it was input, as you said earlier.
It's a lesson learned. You will go through some things and you will experience tough times. And you may be asked to do things that question like your value system in some way, not in like a immoral way or things like that, but there may be times that you're like, that doesn't sit right with my instincts, right? Make a choice. And, like I said, when I've had to do that, I've pushed back and everything actually worked out. So I thought to myself, like, great, I can push back more. And then when it didn't work, on to the next, because I've taken in all these great lessons. Now I can go apply them somewhere else.
Leadership does often mean making hard decisions. What's one pivotal decision that really tested your leadership? I haven't asked you for a lot of examples, so I'm going to ask you for an example here. Something that tested your leadership, a decision that you made, and what did it teach you? What was the input that came out of that?
I was working with a client that just really, and I say this because I think this is a great example of we can diverge and still be in community with one another later. I was working with a client once that we just weren't aligned on what my role was going to be and how I was showing up in the work. And I had to make a decision at a time where every single client felt like gold to me, right? I had to make a decision of this is not going to be a productive fit for either of us. I'm not able to do what you're asking me to do. And quite honestly, I'm not represented in the work the way that I believe that I should be. And so after literally going back and, when you're an entrepreneur, you look at your financial statements like drinking water every day. You probably shouldn't. But I remember
you're there.
You're just like, what does this all mean, right? And I made the decision that I'm going to forego what was to be the remainder of our contract and what felt like a huge opportunity for my business from a visibility standpoint, all sorts of things, because we were just in misalignment. And it was really tough. I was so scared to make that call, to have that conversation, and to, again, potentially derail my business. And nothing happened. Still here, still thriving. But beyond that, I'm able now to collaborate with someone and an initiative that would have been a client But now we're able to work together as collaborators in various capacities. And that was, to me, a growing up moment. I always talk about putting on my CEO pants. And sometimes the CEO has to say, not right now. And sometimes the CEO has to say, like, not never. I haven't had to say not never. It's always just been not right now. But that was my first time within the first year of my business. Terrifying.
CEO pants. That was the moment. That takes courage, but did it take some reflection? How long did you reflect on that?
I spent a lot of time. And honestly, I said, yeah, no, I made the decision. And then I didn't really live that decision. I was still there. And then I eventually had to tell the other person. And, I had to reflect, like you said, courage, but also I had to run the logic. And what am I truly saying that I'm foregoing? I'm foregoing potential and a possibility, but that's also what's waiting for me on the other side.
This sounds like transformational leadership, or the start of where transformational leadership happened in your own space. I'm sure you did it in the corporate world as well. But currently, that leadership in action, as you continue down the path with the CEO pants on, what does transformational leadership look like to you?
I think in my bio, I mentioned just like this, or, in some spaces I mentioned, I don't like the idea of the seat at the table. And it's because if I could, I'd flip every table. I mean, honestly, there are God bless Gen Z, because people talk about the Gen Z stare. And honestly, it's because Gen Z is sitting there looking at you going like, none of this makes sense.
That's the reason why.
What are you talking about? And we're so good at hearing the nonsense and then going like,
sure.
Yeah, great.
We'll do something with that.
Love that, right? And they're just like, no. And so certainly I'm raising Gen Alpha, so I can say this, because I'm going to raise Gen Alpha to be to differently. But what I'm saying is, to me, a transformational leader walks in and they think, and someone actually told me this in my career. She said, what was made different by you being there? And I was like, oh, I guess I should have had an impact in a particular space, right? That to me is what transformational leadership looks like. It goes in and it's not so all consumed with power within the leader, but asking the questions and being curious about what this process needs. And so when I think about transformational leadership in government or city or municipality or any of those things, it's all, it comes down to infrastructure and all those typical things. But I'm or economic development, all those things. I think a transformational leader goes and says, how do I build with what I got? And how do I trust in and invest in what's already here? That's actually transformational, because those things, these people, everything already exists as it is, and it's informed by various different things. We talk about just I'm me, you're you. We all have these things that inform our perspective. It's the same with communities. It's the same with employees. Everybody has a unique perspective that's informed by something. A transformational leader goes, so how do I build and invest with what I got?
How do I build and invest with what I have? How do we build something better for all of us?
That's it.
I know your playlist on a podcast platform or books you're reading have to be on fire. So I've got to ask you this question, because we believe in continued personal and professional development here on cbuzz. What is one thing that's really influencing you right now? So It could be a podcast, it could be a book, show, involvement in a group. But I would love to hear this, Jennifer.
Honest?
Yes,
so
you have been very honest this whole podcast, which I love.
Okay, so first and foremost, as a mom of 2 young children, I don't know how people have time to read or watch anything. That's the first thing. I have multiple businesses. I'm a member of a number of organizations, so I'm very civically involved. I'm on a number of boards, so I'm very busy. But so I really wish I could give you a really good book, but I'm going to tell you, this was so mind-blowing to me. I just finished Matriarch, and it is Beyonce's mom's book. And I'm going to tell you why this blew my mind, because Beyonce is a global pop star. Cool. But the person behind the person. And oftentimes people talk about her father. But reading the story of this Black woman who grew up in the Louisiana bayou and overcame a lot of things that are unimaginable to us. And her lineage overcame a lot of things. Then to go on and to build businesses and to build these daughters that are phenomenal, highly talented, and she's back there sewing their costumes. in a world where they were too curvy to be desired by designers, in a world where she would come in and they think she's country and they wouldn't leave space for her. And this is Beyonce's mom, and she didn't have space in the dressing room. And all the things that she talked about and dealt with, it blew my mind. Because I thought to myself, like, here I am also raising 2 children like she did, 2 daughters. And I struggle every day on just getting up and getting their shoes on out the door. But she not only raised just a phenomenal legacy, but she did it and didn't lose herself. She's still sane, I think. And
from what I can tell, yeah.
But I finished that book and I really sat with that, because it's easy for us to go like, oh my gosh, things are so hard and there's this, that, and a third. It's been harder.
It has been. And we need to also sit with that when we're in the middle of what we think is chaos.
For sure. And give more credit to the moms. My gosh. You know, or the person that's raising these children. Because when you see the output, and you see the outcome on the other end, you have to know that it was somebody who poured into them. And that to me was it was mind-blowing.
And reminded you of the work that you're doing.
And honestly, it made me think about my own mom. It made me think about the caregivers in my life. And again, like it could be a mom, it could be a dad, because, you know, the dad did his thing, but he has to write his own book. But, you know, I think that oftentimes it's easy to overlook the person working really hard in the corner.
Our time went really quickly, Jennifer. It did. With the wonderful audio, which we were talking about before we went on.
Yes.
Did you feel like this was,
This was really cool. I mean, I talk for a living, so it's a lot of fun for me, but I also like to share, because like I said, like Tina Knowles, she didn't have to write that book. I got a lot from it, but I oftentimes talk for the women who are like, yeah, I live a pretty mundane life too, or I'm busy. And it's like, yeah, that's important too.
Well, your insights will capture our audience with leadership, creativity, motherhood, and impactful work. So grateful for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And stopping by here. So you guys can learn more about the work being done at Nile Consulting, where passion and purpose really meet, as you can tell from this conversation. Visit www.skynileconsulting.com. That's skynileconsulting.com to learn more about Jennifer and her team's work. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we would love it if you would take a moment to rate it and review us on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform, whatever that might be. Your feedback really helps others discover the show and ensures that we keep delivering this high-quality content from leaders that matter most. cbuzz is brought to you in collaboration with Capital University. We're so grateful to their talented students, faculty, and staff for their invaluable support in bringing what we do to life. Again, I'm Michaela Hunt, your host for cbuzz. We can't wait to share more inspiring stories with you from the Columbus Chamber of Commerce in our next episode.